Today, we have a powerhouse of a guest. It's Nick Thacker, Vice President of Draft2Digital, and probably the only person I'm aware of who has the equivalent understanding of how to advertise on social media platforms that Steve Piper does in Ammo. In fact, there's a fun little anecdote inside of this podcast you'll look forward to listening to about how Nick joined Ammo and why he's part of the program and what he and Steve have collaborated on together. So I'm really excited for you to hear that. There is so much information in this podcast that you can take away and use in your own marketing and advertising. I want to encourage you to fully dial in and hear this one through. And of course, because this is how life rolls, Nick was having some audio issues. And so despite my best efforts getting the raw recorded file from Nick and putting it into this podcast and doing everything I could to salvage the sound quality, you're going to notice that this isn't the best, crispest interview in terms of just sound quality that I've had before. I listened to it extensively and everything is completely understandable. It's not a lost cause, but I just wanted to maybe buffer your intro into the episode and let you know that the audio quality is less than my normal standards. It couldn't be helped. And this was just too good of a conversation to try to do it over again in better environments. So please enjoy now my conversation with Nick Thacker.
This is TRBM Ammo Edition. If you're a published author and want to make a living writing books and selling them to avid readers, you've come to the right place. There's simply no program that's more successful at driving readers towards the books you've written. So the only thing you have to worry about is writing a great book. And the system within Ammo takes care of the rest. Thanks for listening to this conversation.
I do have some nonfiction on the author side, but I am a thriller author first and foremost. I write action adventure thrillers, kind of in the vein of Clive Cussler, James Rollins, Matt Riley.
Awesome. Okay, what got you into writing?
I love this story. I had a granddad who passed away, and he and my dad and I used to all swap paperbacks and
cool.
Thrillers, Michael Crichton, Dan Brown, that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, how hard could this be? I'm going to try writing my own novel, and let's just see if I can get this done. And I think, it was well into adulthood. I didn't want to, I hated writing growing up. And so this was probably when I was 22, 23, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so it was later, I feel like it was later into the writing game than everyone else. But I found out very quickly that it's not as easy as it seemed. It was a little harder than it seemed. And I actually stopped in the middle of that first book, got stuck in the muddy middle, as we say. And I closed my computer and I looked at my wife and I said, this is really challenging. I wonder if anyone's ever written any books on how to write fiction. That's how naive I was. I had no idea. I had no idea that this was like a whole thing that people do. Yeah. So I took a few months and consumed a bunch of books on how to do it, just to try to get through that first book because I wanted to give it to my dad for Christmas. Yeah. And I did. It was terrible, but I gave it to him. He loved it, of course. And I thought, well, that was great. I wrote a book. I'll never do that again. But all the ideas that I couldn't fit into that first book were nagging at me. They were still there. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to write about that little thing or this little thing or this piece of science that I discovered. And here we are 40 books later, and I'm still going.
What is author marketing mastery through optimization, you ask? I'm going to tell you. It's the best way for us authors to make a living selling our books. Are you tired of hearing gurus tell you your book is only good enough to be a lead magnet for services? Are you tired of feeling like you have to be a slave to social media and then frustrated when that time doesn't actually help you sell books? I was too, until I found Ammo. Ammo is the only program that reliably produces results, and it works for anyone. Is it hard work? You bet. Do you have to overcome some of your own prejudices to make Ammo work for you? Absolutely. But rather than being another program that rah-rah shish-goon-bahs tries to get you emotionally excited only to offer unclear methods, Ammo shows you how to design profitable ads step by step through a unique, never-before-tested formula. The founder, Steve Piper, is a data-loving, formula-driven author who escaped the kingdom of Amazon to build a platform for himself where he sold directly to his readers and built a loyal following. With Ammo, you know who's reading your books, how to contact them, and what they want to read next. If you've always been frustrated with Amazon's wall of mystery, of not knowing who's reading your books, of losing 50 to 70% of the hard-earned money you make through book sales, Ammo solves all of those problems by putting you in the driver's seat and showing you how to fulfill your books directly to your readerships. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
Wow. Okay.
Hopefully I've
40,
improved a little bit since that first one, but
yeah, 40 books. That's wild. How many books are you writing a year then?
well, when I'm
Because you don't look like you're 60. You don't look like you're 62. So I'm doing the math here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, some of those are co-written novels. I would say maybe half are co-written or written. I wouldn't say, I mean, they're written by me, but they're shorter. Like maybe that full-length thriller would be 80,000. Some of them are 40, 50,000 because I was going to do serialized stuff. So there's, depending on how you define full-length novel. If I were just writing, and of course that's the dream. I'm not doing marketing. I'm teaching authors things and coaching, and I work for Draft2Digital. So there's all kinds of stuff that's taking me away from writing.
Yeah.
But I had a goal of writing 23 books in 2023.
Oh my goodness.
I am 3 books into it. So we've got a few to go to see if we can get there.
Okay. Yep, you do.
But when I was just doing the fiction thing before Draft2Digital and before I was really heavily investing in the nonfiction stuff, I think I was doing probably about 10 a year.
Wow. That's wild. Okay. Yep. So everybody writes at different paces. I remember having Naomi on the podcast, Naomi Rawlings. So for the Ammo insiders, she's kind of one of the big people or big names in the group that helps out a lot. And I don't know if you'd call her Steve's right-hand person or not, but she definitely is involved. When she was on, she's like, I try to do 2 a year. She feels like 2 a year is good.
Sure.
I have bounced all over the place about what I think I want to write, what I think I'm capable of writing in a year. I can firmly say I don't suspect that I am a 10 book a year kind of person. I wrote 1 book. I'm finished with a second. I think I will get the third one done, at least in its kind of final draft version by the end of the year. So that's probably 3 a year. I might be able to go as high as 4 a year because I wasn't quite as serious about this at the beginning of the year, but beyond 4, I feel like I would start to sacrifice some of the things that I'm attempting to do with my fiction. But the problem is every time I say this, I have this idea. I came from the Masters of Fine Arts culture. So I got my master's degree in fiction writing, and more than a book a year is absurd as far as they're thinking. Like they're thinking, sit on a book for 5 years and make sure that Sigmund Freud would be proud of you. And there's just, and you're kind of like, I understand both sides. I'm sympathetic to the bodice rippers where you can write 27 books in a year. And I'm sympathetic to the highest art literary fiction. So with all of that in mind, I just want to ask you, what are your thought processes? I know you have to have thought this through before. How did you come to where you're at, where you think 10 is a good number and it works for you?
The author coach in me can't help but pause here just to piggyback on what you were saying earlier. It's important to mention, anyone listening to this, no matter where you are in your career, new book, never written, haven't written 10 books, whatever, to recognize that most people never write any books.
Very good.
So it's incredible to celebrate this victory that we have called finishing the damn book. Like that's really, really cool. And you, whoever you are, should be very proud of that because that's a very real, tangible thing. I have 2 secrets to how I write so quickly. One, I write really poorly, which is awesome because I can just publish a first draft. I'm just kidding. The real secret is I dictate. I am always talking into my handheld recorder and transcribing it later and then running it through ChatGPT. There's a whole thing on how I do it. But That's my big secret for how I write quickly. What I've gotten to answer your question, what I've learned over the years is that I am not the kind of guy who can just write all day every day.
Yeah.
Take an 8 hour workday. I can't spend that time writing. I wish I could,
Hmm.
because I wouldn't have to do all the other stuff on the side. I could just write books and be happy doing it. I learned that the hard way with crippling anxiety and panic attacks and wanting to kill myself after I left
Huh.
that full time job.
Okay.
Really realizing, oh shit, I don't know, this isn't what I signed up for. Right.
Interesting.
The
Okay.
argument I had with myself was, well, hey, I'm spending some of my day, working for this church, but then I'm sort of stealing, not sort of, I'm stealing time from them to try to write these books. I'm going to a coffee shop and writing for 2 hours,
Hmm. Yeah.
maybe not every day, but the thought process I had was, if I left this day job and wrote full time, I just multiplied how many hours I was doing with how many, I could potentially write. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, I can write 50 books a year. That's easy. I could just write all day. I
Yeah.
learned the hard way, and I hope nobody has to go through that to learn that. But we're all different, and we're all capable of writing for only a certain amount of time before fatigue sets in,
Yeah.
or our brains are wired. We have to do something different. So I have learned over the years that a good pace for me with fiction, with where I am now, not changing anything about my career on the author help side, if you would call it that nonfiction side, is probably 5 to 6 thrillers written by me, solely by me. So
Yeah.
I could add a couple more with co-writers. A lot of times I'll have them do the first draft after that. So I could add in a couple more with some caveats.
Sure.
But that's kind of the way, my speed. I don't. I was joking when I said I write poorly, but I do think that I'm a music guy. I have a music degree. I know what it means to practice and practice and practice and get better and better and better. But I also am a
Yeah.
marketing guy, and I know what an MVP is, minimum viable product. And I believe I'm ready to let go of my book and put it out into the world sooner than somebody who has a perfectionist bent, right?
Interesting. Yeah. There's so much to dive into here. Um, yeah, let's talk more about that right now. In terms of the minimum viable product, what kind of readership would you? Okay, so there's two schools of thoughts, and I'm going to forget the guy's name right now because I need it, and so it won't come to me. But he was kind of one of the first big indie authors out there, and writes thrillers as well. And he basically said, I used to spend all my time getting everything to an A+ when I realized that, like, at a B, people were really enjoying me. People were enjoying what I was doing, and I guess I wonder for myself sometimes, do you think you're losing some readers by putting out a minimum viable product or a B? And does that bother you at all?
I don't. I don't think I'm losing readers. First of
Okay.
all, it's really impossible to tell. Um, there's, again, like you said, there's so much to unpack here. And what
Yeah.
I'm not saying is I think subpar books should be released into the world. What I am saying is we treat our books like they're our babies, and we would never want to push our baby out, unprepared to the real world, right? Anyone with kids knows that. Anyone without kids can guess that. And the thing is, books aren't our babies. They're our products, and they're what we're selling, and they're what we're providing the world in terms of entertainment value. And there is absolutely a level at which my books need to be considered good before I'm going to let somebody read it. But what I consider good is most of the time, and what you and any other reader or writer considers their bar, is probably somewhere north of where the average reader of that genre would say is good. Right. So what I'm saying is, like, we think, well, this is my book. It needs to be as perfect as possible. And that may be true because we don't want to release subpar books. But we forget that, we're looking at this like it's representative of who we are as a person, where the average reader is coming along and just reading it because they want something good. And they don't care if we didn't put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, if we didn't put everything we had into it, if they, if we secretly know that we could have done more with it, they'll never know that. They're never gonna. They can guess, but they're never gonna know. And so it's not worth the blood, sweat, and tears of panicking
Yeah.
about how perfect I could make this thing. I would much rather release it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm talking. I've already edited the thing. I've already run it through 200
Right.
beta readers. I've got a thing called the Gauntlet. Like, it's a good book at this point. I'm
Right.
not saying that I'm releasing subpar
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so hard because that is the natural inclination we have as artists, as
Yeah. Of
creators. We want our stuff to be as good as possible. We
course.
should. That's the whole point of it. But we can't get hung up on that if we're
Yeah.
trying to build a career out of it. You
Yeah.
absolutely can go the MFA route and write one book in your lifetime and have it be the most perfect thing ever. But that's not the career we're talking about, right? Like that's a wholly
Yeah.
different way to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, and then there's obviously To Kill a Mockingbird, and I don't think that we even have to talk about Go Set a Watchman
Right, right.
because, yeah. But Harper Lee wrote a great book, and she was wealthy for her entire life because of that book, and it hit the zeitgeist, and it just stayed forever.
Yeah,
It's it probably is the greatest book ever written, or at least
it's good.
written in modern history, because it touches everybody who reads it
Sure.
in such a profound way. But right, I agree with you. I don't want to be that writer from the MFA. I've done many ceremonial cleansings and bowed down at all of the altars of destroy the MFA out of my heart, and I've done everything I can to get rid of it. I was secretly reading Stephen King during my MFA, and I couldn't
Yeah,
tell my professors because I
yeah.
adored his work, but my professors thought that he was a terrible writer. So I asked that question a little bit more, I think, for some of the listeners here who are impatient. I think that there is a sense when you're early on, maybe you have two books out there, and we're going to get into this a little bit later in the conversation, but you want to join something like Ammo. You hear Steve say, "Oh, you can't really be profitable with fewer than three books, and honestly, four books if you really want to have a good shot at making money on your writing." So, with all of those things, there may be people who are willing to throw something out there and cut some corners and be like, "Well, it's a freaking ripping story. I know that." And so I'm just going to go ahead and hit publish and throw it in the package and see what happens. And I think that you can do damage to your career by your definition of a B. And so that's a big reason why I wanted to ask you that question, or minimum viable product. Um,
I think
so
it's a
I,
great question, man. And just to,
yeah,
I know we want to move on, and I apologize. I love the question, and I love your thoughts on it because it's
yeah,
so important to hear these different perspectives. What I'm hoping the listener, the watcher can glean from all this is that you just have to know what your genre expects as good,
yeah,
and you have to have the drive toward great every single time.
mhm,
A newer author is going to have a harder time with that because they don't know what the
yeah,
genre expects to be good. Like they've read in the genre, hopefully,
mhm,
and
yeah,
that sets the bar for us. But until you do it, until you get the reps, it's really challenging to tell, hey, is this going to work or not?
yeah,
And you only get that through reps, right? Or
yeah,
you get lucky, or you get it through reps. And that's what I'm really getting at is we're building
yeah,
sandcastles here, you know,
yeah,
and we're just trying to focus on the next sandcastle. Like we know that the tide's going to come in and it's all going to go away. We're going to start over tomorrow. That's
mm,
what we're doing, and you have to love the process of building the sandcastle.
yeah.
Not I got to build the best sandcastle that's going to last forever. You could get lucky and that sandcastle could stay there forever, but most of the time you're going to do it and you're going to think it's the best thing ever, and you're going to be disappointed because it goes away the next day.
Yeah, that's a
And
that's a
so
really good point. I mean, I hear a
get that
guy
through
I've
reps.
been listening to a lot named Alex Hermosi. He's a really good businessman, and I like his philosophical
Yeah,
outlook on
I love
business.
Alex. Yeah,
Yeah, he talks a lot about, he's like, you don't even know the best writers in a different country. You don't even know the best writers, movie stars from other countries. So what makes you
isn't that
think you're
wild?
going to have a legacy? Absolutely. This
Isn't that
idea of
wild?
legacy
Yeah,
is total BS. And so yeah, that's where I stop being precious about things. The other thing I will say, and then we do move on, but everybody who listens to this show knows that I took 5 years to write the 9 Lives of Margaret Longhigh. I didn't mean for it to be the start of a series for me. And I would say almost universally, people have said, "Oh, I like the Eight Ball Magic of Susie Q better." And I spent 3 months writing that book and
yeah.
had it fully edited and published in 5 months. So,
My
um,
best-selling book I wrote in a single day.
yeah, right.
I dictated 80,000 words as a test,
Yeah.
and it's
It's in,
one of my best books. Yeah,
yeah. So time does not matter. In fact, they've done research studies now. I've mentioned this before as well. But volume always beats um, like rehashing. So when you give somebody, you're like, "Hey, I'm going to grade you on one product this entire semester,"
yeah,
and one group is set to make one project, make it the best you can, and then this other group is set to make a project a day, and I'm going to
yeah,
grade you by your final project. And every
yeah.
time, people who do volume do better work. So,
I remember that study. That's so fascinating, and it's so
yeah,
true, and it's really gels with my philosophy. So
yeah.
it's easy for me to adopt, and because of things we just talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on. You've written 40 books. You are part of Ammo. So and you said you have a marketing background. I'm kind of curious, What were the circumstances of finding ammo? Let's start there. What circumstances? You probably saw an ad on Facebook, is my guess.
No, actually,
No. Okay.
whisperings. So
Uh-huh.
pretty well. I think I'm pretty well in tune with the indie community. I'm vice president of Draft2Digital. Like I go to all the conferences. I know people that know Steve, and know the program. And I kept hearing, hey, this is really cool. You should check this out. I had breakfast with Joanna Penn, for example, to just continue the name dropping session. And
Yeah.
she mentioned
Let's
Steve by
go.
name, and yeah, she was like, "Oh, you got to check out Steve's stuff." And I said, "Okay, great." I wasn't in a position where I don't want to. I don't want this. I'm going to have this. I'm just going to say it, and it'll sound the way it sounds. I wasn't going to buy the course. I just
Hmm.
wasn't ready to. I already do direct sales. I've already been
Hmm.
doing direct sales for years. Like I said, I've got a marketing background, web developer background. I can do that kind of stuff technically in my, very easy for me. I love the different perspectives of anyone kind of teaching this stuff. And I was thinking about doing a course of my own a while ago, but I wanted to put together, and I haven't really formalized what this is going to look like, whether it'll be on behalf of Draft2Digital or if it's just going to be something that I do on my own. But I wanted to put together like kind of a roadmap for indie authors, navigating this journey called becoming a self-published author, a full-time
Hmm.
author, whatever you want to call your career. And I wanted to do it thoroughly. I know Mark Dawson is a friend of mine. Enrolled in his programs, Morgana Best, like all these people that are doing similar things in terms of teaching authors things. All of them are doing incredible work. And I wanted to know if Steve is doing that same sort of work, if he's doing something
Yeah.
totally different, if it's aligned with sort of my philosophy on this whole thing, if it's not, and if it's not, great. Like there's a new perspective that I need to learn. So I
Yeah.
reached out to Steve and I asked him for access. I said, I'll trade you. I've got my courses of my own and I'll give you access to all my stuff. Would you be okay with that? And I'm just going to, I'm going to poke around and stuff and see what it's all about. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. It sounds good. And it's a lesson in in business, right? It's, you always
Yeah.
ask. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
I said, hey, listen, I'm not, I don't even have time to really go through all this very in depth and kind of put it into play your way or whatever. I've got my own engine I'm kind of running over here. Would you be okay with me just poking around, seeing quality and stuff? I'd love to trade you with
Yeah.
anything that I've got is yours. Just so let's be friends.
Calling all self-published authors. If you live in the United States and you've always wanted to see your books in bookstores, this may be the most important ad you'll hear in 2023. Listen carefully. No matter where you are in your publishing journey, it's not too early to position yourself to pursue brick and mortar bookstore distribution. But if you're a self-published author, you've probably heard, getting your books in stores is next to impossible. That's no longer the case. For just $5, you'll receive a lifetime membership to the Self-Published Author Co-op. When you join, you'll have access to a members-only community with a detailed roadmap on how to get your books ready for bookstore distribution. Joining our community does not guarantee bookstore distribution, as there's a limited availability each month to be a featured author. And that's why the cost of a lifetime membership is less than a cup of coffee. Whether you're just about to publish your first book or you're selling thousands of copies a month, if you don't have your books in bookstores, the Self-Published Author Co-op is the easiest, most efficient way to get national distribution of your books. Click the link in the show notes to join now.
We're planning on getting our families together. He's got a couple little kids and the same age as ours, and so yeah, he's a friend of mine now. And I have been through the course though. So long story short, I have been through ammo, and I have clicked around, and I have done a deep dive, and I gotta say I was hooked. I mean, everything he's
Yeah.
teaching. There's always the first. I don't know the guy. I don't know what he's doing. And if he's trying to capitalize on indie authors, that's always the easy test, the first test. I want to see if he passed. Obviously, passed with flying colors. He's not out there to steal money or anything like that. And he's an author, of course, as Lars Emmerich. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, he's a good dude. But when I got into the course, I was like, oh, he's actually teaching like marketing data analysis. Like, this is
Yes.
like testing in survey science. Like, this is real stuff that
Yeah.
you don't get from just playing around with Facebook ads dashboard. Like,
Right.
he's been in the weeds here. And of course, he just says it on his Facebook ads that I've now
Yeah.
seen. I've done ads for $100 million corporations, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
no, it's legit stuff. And I love the course. As I said, kind of my disclaimer is I've already had my own thing going. So
Mhm.
I haven't adopted a whole lot from him specifically, but not because
Yeah,
I don't agree with it, just because I'm like, all right, well, I have to undo what I've done, test this
sure.
out, and and there was no reason to because my kind of engine is working just fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's good to hear that from you too, because I think that there are people who listen to this podcast, and it's similar. You mentioned Mark Dawson. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, James Blatch. I mean, of course he's going to talk up Mark Dawson's kind of whole system because like they're in it together. And so it's always nice to hear from somebody who knows ammo, who also does other marketing stuff, and just verifies like Steve's the real deal. I have uh, I have referred a few people to this program, and a couple of them just continue to be really upset that you have to pay for things like Klaviyo, or you have to pay for things like Unbounce. And I'm like, for one, those charges are by far the least amount of money you're going to spend on anything else in the program. You're going to spend so much money on ad dollars. Just get over it. Like ads are going to eclipse all of your subscriptions for the year in probably the first 2 weeks if you're really giving it your all. I mean, everybody's going to come on a different budget, but if you really want to make this thing work, you got to be willing to put some green in front of you and go with confidence. And so those things are kind of funny to me. It does open up a question for me, though. Talk to me a little bit about your process. Are you sticking to Facebook? Do you use other platforms? If you use other platforms, which ones work for you? What would you say to somebody who wants to be adventurous and maybe jump out into the wider world of marketing on multiple platforms?
That's a big question. I'll try to answer it as succinctly as possible because I definitely, like I said, I teach this stuff. I'm absolutely not here to talk up any of
Yeah,
my courses and stuff. But I love marketing. I love talking about
yeah,
marketing. It's not scary to me like it is for a lot of indie authors. So I was blessed coming into this world of knowing, hey, like we wrote the book. Now I don't know what to do. Like that was never a big question mark for me. I was like, oh well, you got to build a mailing list, right? Like that's obviously, and everyone was like,
yeah,
we don't know that. So I believe marketing comes down to for the successful indie author, there are three buckets we should all be doing. Advertising is absolutely one of them, as you said. Email marketing, as I kind of alluded to a second ago, and social media is just that's what branding is today. And it's definitely an indirect engine for sales, but it's something that if you come to me as an author and you're like, well, hey, I want to buy this billboard ad, I'm like, hey, great, that's a cool idea. Let's test it. Um, let me see your email marketing, let me see your advertising, and let me see your social media marketing. I mean, if those aren't locked down, take
mm,
that billboard money and put it in one of those three buckets and get that ready to go.
yeah,
When it comes to advertising, I've used almost every platform you've heard of, all the way from Google Ads to TikTok to you know Pinterest to BookBub ads. And to be fair, I have not given all of them a fair test. Meaning
sure,
probably about $10,000 of ad spend over a case like testing cycle. But what I have done is learn that there's three big ones that work really well, at least for me, and
yep,
they're Amazon, AMS or AMG, depending on
hmm
whichever platform you're on, AA, Facebook, obviously, and BookBub actually plays a role in some of my launches.
okay,
Sorry, some of my promos.
sure,
Now it depends on what I'm trying to do, and this is where it gets a little squishy because authors just want to have an engine where they put $1 in and get $2 out, and
hmm
when you run the data at the end of 5 years of doing it, that may be what you end up with, but it doesn't ever
yeah,
feel like that when you're doing the work day in and day out to keep these ads
yeah,
running. Um, I have found that generally speaking, Facebook ads are where I want to spend the majority of my money
yep,
because I get to keep the data, right? I get to keep
yeah,
the people who come to my website. I do use traffic ads rather than sales or conversion ads, right? Which Steve talks
yep,
about. There's obviously a difference. We start with traffic to test and all that. I don't usually test that way, but I'm 10 years into my, Facebook ads journey at this point. So I kind of
yeah,
tested a lot already. I'll just go ahead and pop for the sales ads most of the time. But I still use traffic ads when I'm sending traffic to some other website like Amazon. They end up being
absolutely,
cheaper, right? And they end up, I can't get the data anyway. So I don't want the conversion API ad because I'm not
that's
going to
right,
get anything from it.
yep,
So I generally will do that. And then when I'm launching a book, I will usually drop some investment in the Amazon ad side and different iterations of that we can talk about all day. And then for promos, I have found BookBub ads work really well.
yeah,
Once we've tested a cost per meal, a cost per thousand, CPM impression, that kind of thing, over on BookBub, which does take a whole different kind of mindset than the other two platforms, they end up working really well for
okay,
promotional stuff. You got a book that's 99 cents, certainly free. maybe even 199, that will do well on BookBub.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to promote a new release at full price, even 299, around that, people aren't as responsive over them.
Yeah.
They're used to deals, right? So those are the three ones. So three buckets of marketing, and within the advertising bucket, I could put those three platforms as my top.
Yeah. I'm wading into Pinterest right now. I'm going to see how Pinterest goes.
Yeah. Okay. That's let
One
me know because I haven't done as much testing over there.
Yeah, one of the reasons I decided to is I was at a book selling event. So I have a weakness. I really, really, really like to sell paperbacks, even though they're
Mm,
harder to be profitable on. I want people to hold my book.
sure.
It's like that billboard for you. You know, if you can get enough people holding your book, if someone sees it on the subway, they're like, "Oh, what are you reading?" I think that you just
Yes.
have those
Yeah.
like natural word of mouth interactions more with a paperback than you will necessarily with headphones if you're listening to an audiobook or, an e-reader.
Mhm.
So I like that. And Pinterest, from what I understand, it probably is going to be better at moving paperbacks. If I can use the testing that I've done on Facebook, and if I can translate that into usable information for Pinterest, that's the big question. The second thing that I really want, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because it's one area where I hate to say this, but ammo's lacking in one area, and the area is age control. It's really difficult to get Facebook to convert for me for a younger crowd, even though I'm writing 30-year-olds as the protagonists and rated R stuff. Like I'm writing some pretty smutty stuff, not like sexually
Yeah.
smutty, but there's lots of
Sure.
violence and,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. And I would love for young people to read it because I feel like it would relate, but I'm selling primarily to 55 and up. And I
Yeah.
think that Pinterest, I have a chance of catching the college crowd, and maybe some younger, 40 and under type of people. Have you experienced any ways to get the younger crowd involved? Because again, word of mouth, longer term customer, all of those things that you would love about that situation. I think if you can get younger readers.
Yeah, I have. I also have a demographic that's 55 plus, mostly women. Well, that barely. It's
Yep.
about 55%
Yeah,
women.
me too. Yeah.
But yeah, she's right. Asking for another beer. I always want another beer. What I've discovered with Facebook, especially now, we started, and I say we, the advertising industry started on Facebook when they first launched the platform. Everything was let's get as granular as possible because we have granular data. Then they built an algorithm. I don't believe it was first. I believe they released their ad platform first, and then their algorithm, what some people would just say the AI, the magic black box. The algorithm was built later, and they were pulling certain levers at Facebook to get certain data out of their black box. And they gave us those levers as advertisers. So early on, we had very interest focused, granular demographic ability, right?
Yeah.
Um, Over time, we've gotten less granular data. We're unable to get as specific. Now, I know that
Yep.
sounds counterintuitive, but think of it this way, as by way of example, Facebook doesn't let us target certain authors.
Right.
Like they never have in some cases, but in some cases, they've actually removed those authors from the platform.
Mm.
Whole interests, they've just taken away.
Yep.
Certain movie series that you try to target are no longer there. It's not because they don't like us and they want us to fail. It's because their black box has so much data in there, they don't know how to pull certain levers to get that out. But the magic black box algorithm does. And so we have seen broader interest working better. That is a very broad statement. I don't want anybody to go home and
Sure.
say, Nick said never to target anything. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just
Yeah.
saying Facebook's really good at it. If you do your ad copy right, your headline, your text, all that stuff, Facebook knows who you're trying to target and they'll go
Yeah.
find them. And sometimes it works better than trying to give them an interest. Age is the same way. It knows generally
Right.
because that's one of the first things it makes sure you're a human, and then it makes sure you're not too young to be on Facebook. So it
Right.
knows how old you are. It's one of the first things that they get that's actual data that we give it. And so it knows exactly who each person is visiting and what they're clicking on and what they'd like. That's a really long-winded way of saying, rather than trying to force target that age
Mhm.
group, I've heard and I've experienced. I haven't done a ton of age testing because, like I said, I know my demographic and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I think more people who are older are using Facebook rather than younger, generally speaking.
Yep.
But in order to target the younger people, what I've seen work really well is to go about 20 years in either direction from your target age and set that
Yep.
as your range. So even if you're targeting somebody 25, you might go as far as low as you can, 18,
Yeah.
and then go all the way up to like 35 or something, or even
Right.
40. And then just let your ad copy act like SEO for that black box, to
Right.
say, this is great for younger fans. This is great for ages 13 through 25, or whatever the thing is, and just kind of let it train itself on
Yeah.
your ad. All that to say, though, Facebook may not even be the best platform
Right.
because
And that's,
they're
yeah, that's what I
on
was curious
TikTok, they're
about.
on
Yeah.
Snapchat, they're on
Yep.
WhatsApp. Like there's these different things that, the social media side might be a
Yeah.
better way to invest in that money.
I dove into Snapchat because I've been seeing a lot of ads on Snapchat and getting that younger crowd. And I might go back. I got a little gun shy with them because I thought I had everything set up correctly so that they were gonna, and I was gonna run a very modest budget. I'm still not in a
Sure.
place where I can just throw money all over the place. And so I think I had set it for $30 a day. And like same day I set it up, I'm waiting for it to prove. I'm doing kind of my other stuff. And the next thing I know, it spent $24 in like 30 minutes. And I was like, get me off. I don't know what it's going to do.
Shut it down.
Yeah, shut it down. I did. I shut it down immediately. And I went and I started looking at the data, and it had served my ad to a bunch of 13-year-olds. And I was like, this is not appropriate. And I had specifically said that I didn't want it to serve that young. I think probably if I would have looked at the fine print, there's probably something similar to what you have with Facebook or Pinterest, where it says, I might go plus or minus certain amounts in order to, effectively serve your ad. So you always have to keep
also
those
just
things
keep in mind, these platforms are not that old. And so the ad platform on the platform is certainly not that old. Facebook is a very mature ad platform now. But I was doing it from day one when they first announced it. It was the Wild West. You just threw money and hoped it worked. And that's what Snapchat sounds like it might be.
Yeah.
Google, we want everything to run like the Google AdWords dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. I mean, Google AdWords is great, but they've invested billions into making it great.
Exactly.
And Amazon is somewhat of an enigma as well, because they don't give you the data that they have. Why not? Well, it's probably not because they hate us. Probably because it's really, really challenging and they haven't figured out the best way and the most efficient way to do that. Amazon's always looking out for, number one, which is them and their bottom line. It may not be worth the money for them to invest heavily into making the ad platform better. They're still using it, So you have to keep that in mind too. With like Snapchat, it's like, well, I mean, you may be one of a small percentage of the population trying to advertise on Snapchat. There's not enough money for them to make a really good ads dashboard. People will just throw money on it and hope for the best. They'll just they'll cash that check all day. If anyone's listening and wants to throw money at me and hope for the best, I will happily cash your check too,
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got a store set up. I can accept Square. There's so many ways you can give me money if you want to. I make it easy. I make it easy.
I'll be a black box.
That's right. So we can't not talk about Draft2Digital based on your position. So let's take a little pit stop on Draft2Digital. For people out there, like the 5 people who knew nothing about Draft2Digital, go ahead and tell them what it is, and then let's kind of go from there.
Yeah, Draft2Digital is a distribution company, and it is exclusively for independent authors. So we want to put the power in the hands of the people, right? We want to let you maintain control of your IP, your intellectual property, but also give you the power to distribute to all these stores worldwide without you having to go set up individual accounts at 200 plus websites that are in different languages and then do, VAT tax for things. Americans don't have to ever think about that kind of stuff. And it gets to be unwieldy doing tax interviews in 40 different countries. Draft2Digital handles all of that stuff for you with one dashboard, and it's totally free. We take a percentage of royalties. If you make a sale, we'll take 10 to 15%, depending on the platform. But it ends up being a very, very great way to make what I call found money. You can go, and we actually recommend going directly to Amazon. Don't use Draft2Digital for Amazon because they don't like that. Go directly to Amazon. If you want to go directly to the big player, if you're selling really well at Kobo, don't change that. Stay there. But we're awesome for catching all of the other stores that you may not even know about. I make, most of my books are in Kindle Unlimited. I started dabbling in translations of my main series. I heard thrillers were big in the Netherlands. So I was like, I'm going to translate everything to Dutch.
Nice.
You know what? It didn't sell a single copy here in America, obviously.
Okay.
But I uploaded to Draft2Digital to go what we call wide. Non-exclusive, and I am making $100 a month just from Dutch translated copies of my main series. So cool. I call that found money, and there's people obviously who are very, very successful wide, and they're making way more money than that. And so it ends up being a very healthy amount of money that you make, and you don't even notice the percentage that Draft2Digital takes to do all the work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there are definitely people listening to the show who just aren't necessarily super far along. So maybe they don't understand that if you list your books in Ingram, you could be available in libraries without even necessarily knowing it. You'd be available in things like Hoopla, where and I call that found money too for Ingram as far as
Yeah,
that goes. It's like
absolutely.
you create the listing there, and now it's free, so there's no reason not to. Sounds like that's the same with
Right.
Draft2Digital. You just create the listing, and then the book finds its way to places. What are some things that you would say to an author who is new to Draft2Digital that they should do in order to maximize the amount of found money, or maybe even have like an aha moment in their authoring career using Draft2Digital?
First of all, go get an account. It's totally free. There's no
Yep.
reason not to. Even if you never upload a book, we don't care. You're not plugging up anything but making an account with us. And then the second thing is pick up the phone and call our customer support team. They have business hours, but they're the best people on the planet. I've met them in person. They're amazing, and they're very, 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 very helpful. They will literally, I mean, we've had joke stories of people, they'll call in, hey, I need help ordering something, for my wife's birthday or whatever. Like, we'll talk people through that kind of stuff. Don't
Yeah.
call and do that. That's not a good use of their time.
Yeah.
But they're very helpful. They're very good people. It's, in terms of marketing, that's always the big question mark, because while Draft2Digital doesn't do marketing, the most important aspect of marketing a book is having that book available. And that's
Yeah.
that's where Draft2Digital comes in, right? So if it's not in the store, no one's going to be able to find it anyway.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say we don't do anything. We have promotional opportunities that come up. Megan is our coordinator for that. Places like Apple, a lot of times don't want to work with individual authors or artists,
Yeah.
across the board. They want to work with an aggregator like us, and so they have promos that aren't necessarily exclusive to Draft2Digital, but they are largely don't exist for the independent author. So if you're with
Yeah.
Draft2Digital, you'll get an email if there's something in your genre that's running, and you can click a button and participate in that marketing kind of a promotional opportunity. I am the vice president of Draft2Digital, and the department I run is called Author Success. Now, we don't have any company within that is focused on marketing yet, but what we're doing is building up a brand of companies that we either purchased or built within Draft2Digital that help authors with something that they need. Good
Yeah.
example is book covers. We just acquired an old book cover company, and it's pre-made book covers, custom covers, things like that. It's
Cool.
called selfpubbookcovers.com. I am currently working on rebuilding the whole platform, the whole system, making it work better and be able to be upgraded and changed and all that. And then the other company is one that I built a while ago called Author Email, which is exactly what it sounds. It's a kind of a MailChimp sort of thing
Yeah.
for authors exclusively. And we want to offer these things to authors because they need them. And new
Yeah.
authors may not know they need them, but at some point they're going to need a cover. They should be building a mailing list. They should be distributing their
Yeah.
books wide. Um, that's what we're here to do. And
Yeah.
we're doing it this way. Like, Draft2Digital never charged for services before.
Hmm.
So they put me in charge of this kind of silo within the
Cool.
company, because we didn't want to come across as, we're not a vanity press, we're not a hybrid press, we're
Right.
not publishers at all. We're just helping authors with things they need, and we
Yeah.
want to do it in an ethical and affordable way, and that's my job.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, that's really fantastic. The mail catches my attention because the funny thing is I have a decent sized email list. I just don't really use it because I'd never know what to do, and I've got
Sure.
like I've got Klaviyo, but I don't know what to send out. And
Sure.
so that's it's true. Like, you bought my books because of an ad, and I am at a stage in my own author career where once you bought my books, you bought my books. Like, you have what I have, and so
Yeah.
like, what do I want to email you about? But I want to keep the relationship going, and I think there's some really good uses of email to do that and keep a customer warm, keep them remembering that you exist. I think those things are really important. With the email thing that's coming up for Draft2Digital, is that kind of part of it, or what would you say is the focus for the email component?
Yeah. Well, it is out there. It's available now. It's an open beta, is what I like to say, because it works. I built the functionality first. The deliverability, the reputation is the hard part when you build an email server,
Yeah.
which I do not I wouldn't wish that on my mortal enemy. Do not build an email server. It is a nightmare. But I built that first, and then I knew that at some point I would turn my attention toward making it easier to use, making it a little bit
Hmm.
prettier, drag and drop interface, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then Draft2Digital acquired the company, so I became an employee of Draft2Digital running that. Um,
Oh,
which
okay.
and then of course we bought Smashwords and we bought self-help book covers. So we
Yeah,
haven't had time to invest the dev team
sure.
on doing those, visual improvements.
Yeah.
All that to say, you can go sign up right now. It's $10.99 a month. You can send unlimited emails. The list
Wow.
size you can have is you can have up to 10,000 subscribers on the
Okay.
platform at that level. And then the next level up is like $29 a month, and it's 20,000
Wow.
subscribers. So it's very very affordable, especially when you compare it to Mailchimp, MailerLite, Klaviyo,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Now, I will say Mailchimp is a CRM. It's a customer relations management tool, right?
Right.
Intuit bought it for $1 billion, not because it sends emails,
Right.
because it does a lot more than that. But that's
Yep.
not what most authors need. Klaviyo is a really well integrated with Shopify and Facebook, and it does all sorts of
Yeah.
automations and stuff. It's more expensive because some authors don't need that. Author email
Yep.
is very, very simple in terms of it sends emails. It does it very well. Reputation is as high as anyone else in the industry. And we have automations. You can certainly set up some flows and things like that.
Yeah.
Autoresponders are part of it, but we wanted to keep it again for the author who's like, hey, I know I need an email list. I don't want to pay $300 a month to Mailchimp. What do I do?
Yeah.
Come over here, put your list up, and as long as you have 10,000 subscribers or less, which most authors do, there's
Hmm.
no feature gating, right? We're not going to prevent you from sending autoresponders like Mailchimp does.
Mm.
You can do everything any of the big guys can do, but you pay $10 a month for it. That's a win.
Yeah, that does. I mean, that seems amazing. I might be considering something like that because I like Klaviyo. I'm just now I'm not taking advantage of what actually it exists to do.
Absolutely, sure.
And so I'm not even using it necessarily to capture more customers that abandon cart or anything like that. I'm
Yeah,
I'm pretty I'm
yeah.
pretty lame when it comes to that. So I guess I want to peek into one area. There may be nothing to talk about here, but I'm curious. I mentioned physical copies. I'm curious about your thoughts on physical books. Is it something you focus on yourself? So not talking draft to digital here, going back to just talking to Nick. Do you focus on physical copies? If so, what are your thoughts about the biggest bang for your buck, so on and so forth?
So physical copies, as you said earlier, the margin is lower,
Yeah.
it's smaller, and so it's apples to apples comparison. It's harder to make money with a
Yes.
paperback versus an ebook, right? That's getting that out of the way. It's not hard to make money with paperbacks when you think of it in terms of this is part of an experience I'm creating for the reader. So someone comes to the website. Sorry, answer your question. Yes, absolutely. We're focused on paperbacks. I have a publishing house called Conundrum Publishing. We do thrillers only, but we do paperback, audio, ebook, same thing. And I run both of these platforms the same way. My personal website and Conundrum. There's no reason I would do Shopify over here and WooCommerce over here. Like they're all the same.
Yeah.
And so what I test on my side eventually will roll out to Conundrum and vice versa. Um, Paperbacks sell really well. There's a lot of people who that's just their preferred format, always has been, always
Yeah.
will be until they die. And so it's important that we're marketing to them until they die with more and more paperbacks and things that they want. And people love people who want a paperback. They want the tactile experience. As you said, they want to be sitting in the subway and reading a book and someone asks them what they're reading, they can talk about it. And they also are typically the person who is going to enjoy book adjacent things that we can either sell them
Mm.
or add on to the experience. So simple things are like bookmarks or business
Yeah.
cards with book cover size shaped business cards that have a QR code for a free book. I do really well with that. If I sell a paperback, now those are things I can add on for free. I've
Yep.
actually recently I used Sticker Mule to produce some poly mailers for me that have my thriller logo on it and all that. It's fully wrapped in full color thriller
Yeah.
goodness. And so I'm creating this whole experience for authors. I mean, sorry, for readers, specifically for paperback readers. But
Hmm.
we can't forget, like, the way to make money with that, just like Steve has always said in the ammo course and any other course you take on direct sales, the money isn't in one book at a time. It's in
That's right.
bundling and it's in
That's right.
upselling. It's in
Yeah.
cross selling. It's in thank you page, cart addition, cart abandonment. It's in all that stuff that we do after the fact. And that's
That's
no
right.
different from selling an ebook, selling audio.
Yeah.
My bestseller right now is a 6 book bundle of ebooks, and of course, the first email actually in the cart, there's the order bump where you toggle a button and get the audiobooks thrown in, and then on the thank
Hmm.
you page, you get a couple more if you want them, and then by the time they're through my first funnel, sequence, they're asked to buy a paperback, and then they get to
Hmm.
cart, and there's an order bump that says, "Do you want it to be signed?" And I found that that's an easy upgrade if you can sell it as, hey, I'm not asking for more money because I want to make more profit because my signature's worth something. It costs
Right.
more to ship it to me and then I have to ship it to you. So
Gotcha.
$5,
Okay.
I'll sign the book for you, you know. And then all of a sudden the margins of scale, start to kick in again. And we're
Yeah.
now making as much money per book as we are with an ebook, right? A lot of people who get to checkout, if they're going to spend, $15 on a book and, $6, $7 on shipping, why not spend $5 more and get it signed by the author himself?
Right. Yeah.
That's just psychology, people's thought process. And then, of
Yeah.
course, once they get through that, I've got another book I can sell. You want that paperback? Well, if you buy two more, I'll give you free shipping. You
Yeah.
know, all that stuff kicks in. Yeah, it's kind of a pain to set up, especially if you're not using Shopify or something easy. But it's so worth it because that really is the only way to make money.
Yeah.
If your sales ads are selling at $24 per sale, your cost per acquisition is so high, you can't really make
Hmm.
money unless
Yeah.
you're adding more than that,
Yep.
to each the average order value.
That was the conversation I was having with the people over at Pinterest because they're really cool. They'll give you a dedicated salesperson, marketing person from their team if you spend just $30 a day. If you're at the $30 level, which is ridiculously cheap to get somebody that you can actually reach
Sure.
out to and talk things through with. But I was saying to them, basically I need to have a cost per acquisition at about $8 or else I cannot make
Mm.
this work over here. So can I get a cost per acquisition at $8? And they're like, yeah, I think that's possible. Let's see what we can do. So, I'm expecting it to be kind of $10 cost per acquisition if I can really make it work. And then, like you said, get that bump sale for the third book. So I'm going to sell a 2-book package for $20. I throw in the audiobooks right now for free because I really want people to just feel like, I have to buy this
Yeah.
deal. Like this is
Yeah.
ridiculously good. And then throw in the third paperback and, get it over the hump. So that's a nice thing. One other
We
thing I
didn't even
wanted to,
talk about cross selling, like what about
yeah,
coffee mugs, t-shirts, pencils, pens, all
right.
the kind of the knickknacks that come with it.
Yeah,
Thriller genre, typically these guys, they're getting on a plane, they're going to just read something for a couple hours. They don't want a t-shirt, but
right.
there are some things that they do want that I can sell. And
Hmm.
certainly with other genres, it's way easier in fantasy and romance to sell additional items that aren't books at all. Think
Yeah.
in terms of like really, really nice handmade bookmarks or something like that people would pop for. They're buying a paperback. So give them the whole experience and then
Yes.
sell it to them. Don't just give it away.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I like what you say. So there's two schools of thoughts in my mind. And one is don't go cheap because you're afraid you're not worth the money. But there's also
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hermosi, going back to him again, is give them an offer so good they'd be stupid to say no. I've really
Yes.
been focusing my mind on that principle lately because when I structure anything where I say this is so ridiculously good, you'd be stupid to say no, that changes my confidence level going into it. So
Yeah.
even if I'm
Yeah.
leaving money on the table, it changes who I am as a marketer and a salesman. And so I'm willing to leave money on the table to get my head where it needs to be to just offer these things.
I highly recommend every author listening to this go pick up $100 million offers
Yeah.
by Alex Hormozy. I just finished.
Yes.
I love books where he like draws the little diagram. I just think
Yeah.
that's so cool that it's a great
Yes.
way to visualize what he's thinking, and he
Yep.
does that really well. But his whole point is, and this is where like Brendan Burchard is another guy I follow and listen to in the space. He does a lot of stuff on marketing because he realized he was really good at it and everybody was asking him for it. But he's
Yeah.
a motivational speaker and stuff. But he has realized this kind of what Hermosi's teaching is like, don't do it when you hear build an offer so good they'd be stupid to say no. A lot of us authors go, well, okay, that means I better give 3 of my books away for free. And I'm saying, and Brendan's saying, and Alex is saying, no, 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 no. Think of what you could sell. Think of the number first. How do I get $1,000 from a reader? That's a crazy number, right? But how do I get $1,000 from one reader?
Right.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, if books are going to be involved, it better be everything I've got. Okay, cool. That's 40 books, right? In what
Yeah.
format? Well, let's say ebook format, $1,000. Yeah, that's still not quite enough. So you build your offer that way. Start with the
Yes.
number. That's a great recommendation. Start with the number. Maybe it's not 1,000, maybe it's 100, but go
Yeah.
with 1,000. Try it. Just play the game. And okay,
Sure.
so let's say you've got 40 books out in whatever genre you're in, and all the cool little kitschy things you usually throw in there. Absolutely do that. Put it in a really fancy box because people love getting stuff in the mail that doesn't have an Amazon smile on it.
Yeah.
Like that would be super cool. But that's still not enough. That's 1,000. That's still $1,000. People are going to feel that. What could I do? Okay, well then you start getting crazy. Well, I like drinking beer, and I bet a lot of my readers do. Maybe if they come out to me somewhere in Colorado. I'll drive to somewhere in Colorado and have a beer with them, for 4 hours, and we can outline my next novel together. No, not every reader is going to take you up on that offer. But
Right.
is that suddenly worth $1,000 to somebody? You
Yeah,
better believe it is. Would you pay
absolutely.
$1,000 to go sit down with your favorite author, living or dead? Absolutely, you would. If you
Yeah.
had the money, of course. And
Right.
so when you start thinking in terms of that, like you don't go, well, how do I just make everything free? That's an offer people would stupid. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe it is an offer they can't say no to, and you get a big email list of people who don't buy from you, right? But
Yeah.
if you go the other direction and say, I'm gonna pick a number, $500. What does a $500 offer look like?
Yeah.
And then you build it, and then you say, how do I make this even better? There's so much value packed in that people would be stupid to say no to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that that's brilliant. I really, really enjoy that perspective. I think that it works really well. It causes me to think about. So one of the things that I'm doing, and for anybody listening to the podcast right now, you absolutely can go get a free audiobook by doing this if you're really cheaty. I changed the front material of all of my print books. And this comes out of the fact that I'm diagnosed dyslexic. And so for
Okay.
all of my reading life, I've been fine with paperbacks, but I read just as slow as molasses, man. I mean, it's a really slow process. And so sometimes people are like, oh, you read 200 books a year. And I'm like, yes, I do. And I spend hours and hours and hours that most people aren't spending reading books because I value it. I love it. It's fun, but I have to just go slow to keep it in my head. Well, then I learned there's this cool hack. If I throw the audiobook in my ears, turn the speed to 2 and hold the book in my hand, I can zip through like it's a light rail, man. It's fast. It's snazzy. It's great. And so I have decided for every reader who buys my paperbacks, there's a QR code. If the audiobook's available, there's a QR code that you can go and download it. But what they don't realize is they have to give me their email address. And so I consider that to be kind of a win. If you buy my book in a bookstore right now, you could get the free audiobook. Now I have your contact information. If you buy it off of Amazon, you want the audiobook. Now I have your contact information. It's a really big win-win for me. Yeah, I spent $4,000 to get each one recorded by a really great voice, but
That's an investment, though.
long term, it's a huge win. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, hopefully people out there just are getting their brain stimulated to try things, because Nick, I feel like we could probably talk for another 4 hours if my dog didn't keep barking anyways. And
I
just,
typically talk too much anyway. And I
yeah.
want to, I didn't even get to pick your brain about stuff that you've experienced and learned as well over the years. But I'm hoping that we get to do this again sometime too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. It would be really fun. Thank you for giving me an hour of your time. For people who want to connect with you right now, what's the best way to get on a list of yours or get in touch with you?
Well, I'm sure you will get invasive pop-ups if you go to my website. That'll get you right on my list pretty quick. NickThacker.com is where that lives. And that's a good place to find out anything else that is related to anything we talked about. I've got on the homepage, there's a bunch of links that go elsewhere around the interwebs, whether it's Draft2Digital or Conundrum Publishing, whatever the stuff we mentioned, it's all right there. That's probably the best way. I'm eminently findable. If you're on social media, I'm probably around somewhere. I typically use Facebook for most interactions, but yeah, I'm happy to connect with anyone. I do a lot of, like I said, nonfiction stuff as well. A lot of that I run through a Facebook group too. So yeah, I'd love to have anyone interested in kind of hanging out and learning more about the book career stuff. I talk about that quite a bit.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. It was really great talking to you, and nice to meet you.
You too, man. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to TRBM. The theme music was provided by the ever-talented Christopher Talon. And hey, if you liked what you heard, share this show with other readers, because what's the point of telling stories if nobody's listening?